So Dr. Julie, which location are you right now?
So I'm in Florida this week. So I'm, like I said, I have my new setup for Meditation Live and other videos. I'm looking out into the lake right now and
Oh, nice.
enjoying the
Is that the
beautiful
lake in
weather
the
down
back?
south.
What's in the back? Is that the lake?
Actually, I have a lake in my backyard as well as a pool. So the backyard is both of those things. So it's very peaceful, and I think it is in support of what we do at Meditation Live. Just looking outdoors can be peaceful.
Definitely, it's so peaceful. So we've got a few folks here. We're on time. As we get started, let me do a quick introduction, folks. So for those I've seen some new faces here. So for those who are new, we do interactive panels, and we bring experts like Dr. Julie to the panels. You're going to listen into questions I'll be asking Dr. Julie. I'm one of the founders of the company. But the idea here is for really you to get any help you want from Dr. Julie. She's a physician. She's also has two very successful books on Amazon. So we're here for you. She's here for you, Dr. Julie. Maybe a quick introduction, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, hi, folks, and it's great to see a few new faces. I'm Dr. Julie Rosenberg, and as Dee said, I'm a physician. I'm a board-certified pediatric oncologist, but I also work in the area of well-being because in addition to treating cancer, I'd really like to prevent it. And I'd like to be able to serve folks through forums like this, as well as writing and public speaking. And so I'm happy to be part of the Meditation Live platform and happy to bring forward with Dee today some thoughts about mindful eating.
Excellent. And before we get to the subject, I want to thank a lot of repeat users that are coming to the platform. I just want to announce we raised $3 million and we got the money from SoftBank Capital, who is also the same investors in Uber and back in the day, Yahoo and Alibaba. So we're very excited to be part of their family. But we couldn't have done it without you guys and Dr. Julie and Jackie and all of you. Just want to thank everybody here. All right, let's get started. So we did this class, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago before Dr. Julie about mindful eating. And I am telling you, I have been so much more careful after that class on how I eat and how careful I am. And so I was talking to one of my friends. I'll mention his name and I'm going to introduce you guys in the future. He's the CEO of Forbes, Mike Perales. He's actually an investor in us as well. And I was talking to him about meditation, and he's like, meditation is hard to do. A lot of people have a lot of apprehension around meditation, but sleep is super easy because a lot of people have sleeping issues. And then eating is like a universal thing. So I think we're on subject where it's very hard to go wrong, in the sense that everybody's interested in mindful eating. So team, all those who are joining us, use the chat box or Q&A to ask questions to Dr. Julie. We're going to start with a couple of questions that I have, but then it's really for you guys, so jump in. So Dr. Julie, what is mindful eating and why should we eat mindfully?
So mindful eating stems from mindfulness. And of course, what mindfulness is a practice of awareness. It's really being aware of what you eat and being aware of how you eat, your positioning, etc. And mindful eating brings you to the present while eating. So we've talked a lot in the past about the ideas of grabbing and going and eating standing up and eating on the run. And so, we do things like this, we all do. But I think the challenge really is, how can we enjoy our food? How can we have greater awareness of what we're eating in a time and in an environment where there's so many issues related to health and eating. And there's so many different options for eating. So why don't we eat with presence, and why don't we eat with observation, and why don't we eat in a way that brings us more enjoyment? And so the mindful eating concepts and ideas do just that.
So maybe give an example. I think last time you used examples of, how do you want to think about when you have food in front of you? And there was a question that I think somebody asked that said, hey, when I get stressed, I start eating a lot of chocolate. And I think that was a very fun, long conversation, which I think a lot of people suffer from.
Right. So one of the things I said, if folks tend to be stress eaters, one thing you can do is, first of all, be aware. Secondly, depending on your choices, someone as well gave the chocolate example, and then another individual gave an example of pretzels or chips at the desk. if you can portion control, if you need a snack at certain times during the day, even if it's not the most healthy snack, if you portion control and pay attention and even jot down when you're eating, say you need something to eat every 2 hours, at 10, at 12, at 2, at 4, something like this in the afternoon. If you pay attention, that in and of itself improves your overall eating situation, because what we have a tendency to do is take a bag of whatever it is, grab it, and then just keep eating it. And by the end of the day, that bag that was a family size is gone, and we wonder what happened. So just paying attention like that is very good for your digestion, good for how much you eat, and also good for overall weight control if you do this most of the time. Pay attention. And I'm not telling you what to eat. I'm not saying don't eat chips, don't eat pretzels, although of course I'd rather have everybody eat a healthy diet. But what I'm saying is just that awareness will make a very large difference.
And since we did the last class, I've been listening to all your advice. I'm trying to implement it. One of the things that I found was I talk about, your class a lot with folks that I meet. I talk about eating all the time, and usually I'm meeting them at lunch or something. It seems that talking about mindful eating is making me more mindful eater organically, because I have to like practice what we preach. Is there something in the subconscious where, you're a mindful teacher as well, you're also a yoga teacher, is there something in your subconscious that starts to act this exercise we should do? Like, what should we do to make sure we think about mindful eating and not go into autopilot? Because the tendency is, to always be in autopilot. Like, how do we get out of that?
Well, I think, Dee, it's even beyond the idea of mindful eating. I think where we need to be is the observer. We talk in meditation and yoga practices about being an observer. So what I'd invite people to do, and what I think actually gets in the subconscious, is this idea of observation. Observe yourself during the day. And so since we're on the topic of mindful eating, observe what you're eating. For all of us, myself included, it's not going to be perfect, but it is a daily choice to observe. And when you observe, you tend to modulate and moderate a bit more, and you start being more involved with your choices. And if you think about what I'm saying, this, of course, is beyond the concept of food. It really applies to so many things in our lives.
That's very well said. That seems like, how about we try a mindful practice for just a minute or two and get everybody to sort of think about what does that mean? And then in the meantime, what I would love is the folks who are attending, if you could, tell us if you have been eating mindfully, and if you did the last class, and if there was any change that you found. Love to get your feedback back to Dr. Julie.
And so let me just share for a few moments how you can be an observer. So think about, we're together today in class. And of course, I can't see the students. I can just see Dee. But let me ask you a few questions to think about for everyone who's joined us. Where are you sitting? And again, you don't need to answer this. Just think about it. Where are you sitting? What is in your environment? If you're sitting at a desk, do you have a window nearby? Are you sitting in quietude, or is there noise in the background? Are you engaged with us in class today, paying attention to this class? Or do you have your computer open? Is there a book open on your desk? Are you waiting for that next call? If you're eating lunch, since in the US, it's about where I am, it's a lunchtime in the East Coast. And what's happening with you? If you're eating at the desk, are you paying attention? Can you really pay attention if you're listening to us? If you're waiting to get your lunch until after we're done, are you thinking about what you're going to have? Or you're just going to grab something from the office, from a fast food place, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm asking you to do is to be aware all the time. And from that state of conscious awareness, we can take it to the next level, and we can learn to make more conscious choices. But it's the awareness that comes first of your environment, of what you're doing, of yourself, because so often we move through the world and we're not fully aware even of ourselves and what we're doing. We're not paying attention.
That's very well said. Should we do a short awareness meditation? So those who don't know what that means, maybe they can get a practice.
Sure. So why don't we just, everyone take a seat if you're not already sitting. Be comfortable in your seat. Sit with your spine erect but not rigid, your shoulders back and down, chin level to the ground, and gently close or hood your eyes. And pause for just a moment. And now together, quietly, let's take an inhale to a count of 3, silently. Hold that breath at 3 for just a moment. And an exhale to another count of 3, silently. And staying in your seated position in quietude, let's take another breath together. Inhale to a count of 3. Hold that breath. And exhale to a count of 3. And then as you sit quietly, I just ask you in this very, very short awareness practice to think about how you feel. Are you calmer? Are you aware of your seat? Are you aware of your feet on the ground? Are you aware of a more peaceful feeling in your body? And that's what we mean by an awareness practice. And so then let's all gently open our eyes and let's resume our conversation. And so Dee, let me ask you, how do you feel? Because that entire exercise was about 45 seconds.
That was incredible. Before the class started, I was rushing to eat, and then I'm like, oh, it's a mindful eating class. So I've got to sit down and enjoy my meal. So thank you for that. And I did that. After doing this 45 seconds, I just felt that my surroundings were more familiar to me. Like I know where I am. And I think there's something about putting the feet on the ground. I think you recommend it every time we do this. And if my feet are not on the ground, then I think it's a little different, but it's good to be grounded during that practice. I just wonder why is that the case?
Well, I think that, when we do many of these practices, if we're not in community, we're typically alone. And so when we're alone, we don't want to feel off center. We want to feel grounded. And so what I find is seat supported and or if you're in a chair, feet on the ground, we're always supported by the earth. And the earth support, of course, is our home. And we really want to keep our feet on the ground in one way or another. Of course, that can be a metaphor at all times so that we can make the best decisions for ourselves and what we're doing and feel supported in so doing, because so many times we don't necessarily feel that we're supported, but the earth will support us all the time.
That's brilliant. I love that explanation. We have Carolina asking a question that I think is related to what you just said. Is it recommended to eat before or after meditation?
So I actually think it's better, personally, it's a personal choice, of course, but I think it's better to eat after meditation because I think your body is actually more receptive to food, more receptive to digestion because you've prepared it through the meditative practices. And Dee, I have to use your example of sort of wolfing down your lunch before we came together. I didn't eat before we came together. And of course, I do have a little longer break, so it wasn't necessary for me to eat right then, but I'll be more prepared because I spent a little more time, in this meditative practices in community with the folks here with our meditation live class, just preparing myself for that greater state of awareness, for a bit more calm and ready to eat, rather than if I ate beforehand, am I going to sort of wolf down my food, or do I have to eat too quickly? Am I actually rushing to class to meditate? We're always in a rush. Let's see if in our rushed and busy society, we can slow down together for at least a few moments.
And with the practice you just did with us or for us, the 45 seconds, I was just thinking that was enough to get to a sense of presence before you would eat. And I think I'm going to make that part of my routine, where I'll just take 15 to 45 seconds, and then I probably will be so mindful of eating that I'm not like rushing or whooping the food down, right?
Right.
So go ahead.
Right. I was going to say, I mean, my concepts of meditation, we do offer, of course, Meditation Live is just so robust with so many classes, but where I try to differentiate a little bit, because I work in corporate and I work in more rigorous environments oftentimes, is we can't always be sitting quietly in our homes or in a room meditating. But what we can do is take those practices and do what I call meditation on the move, because the goal is to be able to find this place in ourselves on the move, in a flash, in a quick moment, just like we just did together, so that it works for us all the time, not just in class. So that's my idea of where we need to go with our meditation practices.
There's a couple questions, but before I get to that, I love that idea of on the move. And I think, I was in New York for a couple of days. I was sharing with you. Everybody's on the move in New York City, right? There's nobody sitting down. What kind of on the move meditation? What's an example of that?
Well, I think for the New York is a good example, because I worked there for 5 years and know the ropes there. I mean, for example, it's whether or not you can find quietude within yourself. I used to practice mindful breathing, literally walking down 42nd Street in New York. No joke. My office was on 42nd Street. I worked for a big company. Can I walk from the train into that corporate office and be peaceful when I arrive, despite the noise in the environment? And oftentimes there is a lot of noise in places like New York, but the goal is, how can you enjoy the environment, but not succumb in your body, mind, and spirit to the noise?
I love that. So, and I should have done that too. So basically, as an example, it'd be the breathing exercise we just did. 1, 2, 3, hold. 1, 2, 3, and you're walking and you're doing what you're doing, but you're now in a more, aware of your surroundings, you're more meditative place. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think so. I think so. And you could do this all the time, because we're so rushed. When you ask somebody how they are nowadays, they say they're busy, or they say they're crazed, or they say they're crazy, or it's never I'm well or I'm unwell or whatever. It's never that anymore. And so I think the reality, it is, we need to find a way within ourselves, within our busyness, to slow down, and that will affect your health and well-being in the longer term. It will help you manage the stress of your day-to-day life so much better.
Awesome, thank you. And we are 3 minutes left, but there's a couple questions, so we can keep going. Kruti has a question. She's saying, I want to be able to eat for energy, but not to be full. What can I do about that? Or give me suggestions of something I can do so I'm not eating just to be full.
Well, so right. I think, Kruti, for that matter, and it might be a longer conversation, but in brief, I think what the choices that you make eating for energy, the chips, the popcorn, the things we tend to grab and go, that's not necessarily going to solve the problem. But getting more to a balanced diet and eating 3 or 4 times throughout the day, but eating mindfully, and maybe eating a little bit less with some variability, in your protein, carbohydrates, and good fats, may help you get to that. So it's what you eat, how much you eat, how often you eat, will really affect your overall energy state.
Excellent. And last time, we had this class, you mentioned that it takes almost 20 minutes to realize you're full. So if you eat really fast, you're probably overeating, right? So there's a question related to that. I don't know who the question is. Anonymous. Can I lose weight by practicing meditation? So maybe is the answer, similar.
Well, I think you can, but I wouldn't say meditation is a path to weight loss per se. But as we've been talking about, for all these series of classes, it is a path to greater awareness. When you have greater awareness, you are apt to make better choices and better decisions overall. And so if you want to lose weight, just being aware of what you're eating and how much you're eating will help you to modulate your experience of eating and hopefully ideally lose weight. And by the way, in all these discussions, I do not talk about diet because I think diet is associated with the yo-yo phenomenon, up and down and up and down, and too much restriction. People don't like restriction. What I'm talking about is long-term behavioral change that's sustainable, where you also enjoy what you eat. I mean, because, for example, it's really important to enjoy cooking, eating, togetherness, what have you. When you feel like everything's restricted, you're more apt not to follow the program.
That's very well said. I read an article that said 95% of folks that follow one of these diet plans actually end up going back to their original weight within five years or less, which kind of tells you that they're not as effective. Right? There's a question from Oscar. He's saying, what is a good tip to break the habit of stress eating at the moment when the craving kicks in?
Well, so Oscar, I think I said it earlier, and let me repeat it. Thanks for the question. I think that if you're a stress eater, literally bring yourself pick up some dishes, even if they're disposable, and portion out some food when you're hungry. And if you need to, you can even set a timer when you're going to eat. If you need a small snack every hour, so be it. But if that snack is some nuts or a piece of fruit or whatever, just be aware of what you're eating, write it down, and portion it out so that it's not the grab and go phenomenon. That in and of itself will help your weight.
Awesome. And we're here for you, everyone. Dr. Julie is here for us as well. She does a class at least once a week, if not more. We're trying to get more time from her. So hopefully she'll be here with us more. So feel free to ask any other questions. So we're out of time, Dr. Julie. But before we leave, I would love for you to share maybe a brief on your new book. So everybody knows that we have a new book coming. This is also broadcasted on YouTube. So everybody on YouTube, say hello to Dr. Julie. And let's hear about the latest book she's coming out with. Or she just
Right. Thanks for asking, Dee. So I just launched a new book. It was just published and it's available to everyone on Amazon. It's called Be True, Your Personal Guide to Living Your Most Authentic Life. And what it is it's a sequel actually to my initial book, Beyond the Mat. We talk so much about authenticity. I really want to help people to live their most authentic life because I believe that this helps health, well-being, happiness, long-term. And so what this is a book that has both narrative, discussion from me, and a lot of questions, and actually room for journaling. So you can really have a greater awareness, because that's my thing, awareness, and authenticity. You can have a greater awareness of yourself. How often do you take time to really get to know who you are? And so I want all of us to be true to ourselves, to our lives, and to each other. And so on Amazon, this is available to you now. I hope that everybody will pick up a copy, and I know we'll be talking about this further through Meditation Live, and appreciate your support, and let me support you through this work. I think it is very important that we cultivate awareness and we cultivate authenticity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julie. So before we leave, all those who are attending, if you want a free copy of the book, send an email to info@meditation.live and then say Dr. Julie's book, Be True. With your email address, we'll ship you one digitally. And then we're going to have sessions on the book in the future. We'll talk about it. We'll go chapter by chapter and we'll get better at who we are. Thank you so much, Dr. Julie. Appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you. Pleasure. Be well, everyone.